goodbye, my friend. Well, it's too late, and you know that this is the end. I hear the cries of the young and the old, and what they say, you must do what you're told. Now it's too late for your rights to defend.
Welcome to the show. Today we have a lot of great stories to bring to you, but first let's go over a few news events of the last few weeks. So, I'm admittedly not much of a sports guy, but even to me it's pretty obvious that ever since the Cavaliers lost star player LeBron James, the team has been relatively weak. In fact, this weekend we learned that their team's defense isn't even good enough to block excited fans. In other news, the government of Russia has made an incredibly controversial decision over the last few months, as they decided to pass legislation which allowed them to discriminate against the LGBT community. This came with enormous political repercussions, but also personal repercussions for their president, Vladimir Putin, as Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych was so upset by the decision that he broke up with his government and moved to Russia to spend some time with his boyfriend, Vlad. However, it turns out that he is not the only high-level official who left his job prematurely. The same thing is happening at YSU, where it turns out that it's not just the students who drop out after one semester. So too does the administration, as YSU President Randy Dunn announced that he was done, quitting his job after only 7 months on the job, making it seem a lot less like a career and a lot more like a Kardashian marriage. But in the end, why would he want to leave? There's so much to do in Youngstown, like, oh yeah, you could, that's illegal crap. Is there anything in Youngstown worth doing, guys? Let's find out. When I say the words downtown Youngstown, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Slums.
Slums, definitely slums.
Gangs.
Ghetto.
I think I just heard a gunshot in my head, but...
Gary, when I say the words downtown Youngstown, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Great time.
While recent decades have seen the steel industry and thousands of residents leave town, life may be finally coming back to Youngstown. The city, which was named one of the top 10 places in America to start a business by Entrepreneur magazine, has seen a recent business boom, particularly restaurants, including the brand new Susie's.
The concept is kind of a throwback pinup hot dog shop. We have handcrafted shakes, handcrafted sodas, cocktails if you're of age, of course. We have a fantastic array of toppings. The concept behind the toppings is kind of, just to kind of open up people's palates in Youngstown a little bit. The majority of the people that work here in management and that came up with the concept have been around a little bit. We've traveled, and we've found some fantastic things, and we really, really think it's the right time to bring it to Youngstown. We use a ton of local produce, a lot of local purveyors, so, just trying to keep our money in Youngstown a little bit.
You can come here every day for over 2 months and get a different hot dog every day. I think it brings an excitement and fun to dining that we don't really have in this area, where you can come and not take it that seriously and try some things that you've never had before. So I really like that we have toppings that offer a variety of flavor that you wouldn't normally find in this area.
Alright, so I absolutely recommend bacon balsamic marmalade. Actually, anything with bacon, eat it, okay? Always, often. And then the cheeses, we have a really great array of cheeses that we make here. The chocolate porter mac and cheese, it's really fantastic. Dark, smoky, chocolatey, cheesy. It's a little bit of everything all rolled in one. And then any of the pickles. I love all the pickles. So pickled jalapenos, pickled onions, pickled red bell peppers. Try them all. Taste them all, get samples.
I think that 4 years ago, it would be very difficult to think that a place like this would be able to run successfully downtown. I've seen a lot of people from our own community taking risks with their money and their time to try to build places in our area that are fun and that offer us places to go. It's one thing to live in a city, but to live in a city that doesn't have very many outlets for entertainment, it's really difficult to enjoy yourself. So it's really nice that we have the Avalon Gardens now, and we have the Martini Brothers with their burger bar, the Knox Building. So now that I think from 3 years ago today, we actually have an environment that is conducive to businesses sustaining and growing, which I don't think would have happened 4 or 5 years ago.
A night downtown is not complete without dessert at One Hot Cookie, which is only a half a block away from Susie's. One Hot Cookie is owned by Bergen Giordani, who is the mother of Canfield's very own Morgan Reamer.
We opened in April of 2013, and it's just been a little crazy since then. We've actually opened a second store in the Austintown Library about 2 weeks ago. No, excuse me, about a month ago. They're not all our own recipes, but all of the specialty cookies are our own creations, and some of them are kind of customer recommendations and just flavors that kind of come about organically from just different flavor combinations. I eat cookies all day long, so my breakfast cookie, my go-to cookie, is a plain double chocolate chip. But as it gets later in the day, your after dinner cookie has got to be an Oreo or a s'mores. They're kind of the two favorites that either you're all chocolate or you're not so much, which is the s'more. We actually chose this particular location that we're in now was chosen kind of strategically. We wanted to be between the campus, which is up the stairs over here to the left, and between the downtown entertainment district, which is kind of where you spent the evening. So we wanted to be uniquely located between the two so we could capitalize on both markets, as well as the foot traffic during the day from the downtown business community. People should come to downtown Youngstown from Canfield because it's not that far, it's not at all scary, and you really need to see what the core of the community is. So we all live, myself included, live in the suburbs, but the suburbs wouldn't exist without the central downtown district. So if we don't have a strong central downtown district, the suburbs are going to fall apart because of that. So we need to support downtown, we need to support the downtown businesses, and we need to get the message out there that it's not the downtown of 10 years ago when the streets were desolate and, you know, it was tumbleweeds rolling down. It's a vibrant community. As you've seen tonight, there's people out, there's people walking around, there's people spending money, which is all great things.
I think downtown Youngstown is kind of cool. When I was in high school, I used to hang out down there a little bit, be a little, risque, go to downtown Youngstown. My favorite place would be Eastern Gateway Community College. I did actually do a summer semester there, and that was cool. So I did get to see a lot of downtown Youngstown, but the Lemon Grove is cool, and there's Mill Creek Park that's kind of close to downtown Youngstown.
O'Donnell's is probably my favorite restaurant down there. You've also got One Hot Cookie, which has just these giant, melting, amazing cookies. There's V2, has really great food. Cafe del Sol, it's up near YSU's campus. It makes these all different types of crepes. They're like the size of a person's face.
My daughters both play basketball at the Y in Youngstown, so I'm there every Saturday. A friend of mine owns a restaurant and bar in Youngstown, the Draft House, he's a Canfield graduate. So it's a great place. The Covelli Center is always having great events going on there. Elton John being the last one. So I mean, it's rebounding certainly, but a lot of people give it a bad rap.
I think people have such a bad perception. One, because it did go downhill for a while after the steel mills closed back in the 70s. Lots of people lost their jobs. Everyone was moving out. Rampant poverty. And there's still a lot of that, and there's still a lot of violence in Youngstown. If you're just like in downtown, just walking around in that area, there aren't any crimes there. There's like a police officer every other block, and it's perfectly safe.
Youngstown is the heart of this area, and Canfield, essentially being a suburb of Youngstown, was built on the back of the inner city, the greater metropolitan area. So, naturally speaking, if you build your life as it is thus far in Canfield, you should experience the history, the culture, and the tradition that the downtown Youngstown area has to offer.
It's not like there's like, that stereotypic like dark alley with a bunch of shady characters in trench coats in it. Most of the people that are down there are like, they're like some college kids from YSU's campus, some like 20 to 30-year-olds that live down there, and then like people my parents' age who just go down there because it's Youngstown and it's back.
Welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk, minus the coffee this time. I'm here with one of our best writers, Sarah Heaven. Sarah, tell me a little bit about your article you've just recently wrote.
Well, I'm writing an article about foreign exchange students and Canfield High School. Obviously, they're people from Canfield. And I wrote about Bella, the exchange student from Austria, and how she's adjusting to life here. And then Cameron Maris hosted an exchange student from Japan when he was younger, and he told me about how that experience affected him. And then Kirsten Leineck wants to go to Sweden next year, or I think she's actually going. And so she was telling me how she's preparing for that.
Tell us about your Helping Hand story that you did. What did you find out from that?
Well, it really opened up my eyes too, because I didn't know what Helping Hands was at all, except that they go to the special needs prom, and I found out how those kids learn and what it means when they graduate, because they don't graduate when we graduate at the end of our senior year. They graduate on their 22nd birthday, and I learned how they determine when they graduate and then what they do after graduation, and then also kind of some of the disabilities that we have to deal with in our school. But those teachers like deal with so much, and they're like so patient with them.
Sarah, what did you get to eat, Sarah?
Well, we're at One Hot Cookie in Youngstown, and I got an ice cream sandwich, and it's with the snickerdoodle cookies and then praline pecan ice cream in the middle.
Join us next time on Coffee Talk.
So, do you think it's all right for the school to punish kids for things that they post on Twitter?
It depends on what's being posted. If it's something like their opinion about the school, then they're entitled to have that opinion, and they're allowed to post that wherever they want. If they're going around slandering people from the school or threatening the school, that's totally different.
Every student, they could set their Twitter account and like all that stuff to private, so there's not really, if you get caught with that, it's kind of your own fault, I think.
Yes, I guess, because you really shouldn't be saying anything negative about your school.
No, because Twitter is your own private thing, and people post things on Twitter without realizing that others are there, and it's just kind of a place to vent your opinions.
So, what is the school's policy on the monitoring of social media?
Well, the school doesn't have an official policy per se on monitoring social media sites. But what we do have is we have policies about the effective and efficient operation of the schools themselves. So I think the question you're getting at is what does a school district or a high school do when information comes to them that there has been information put out on social media that may disrupt the actual educational process in high school. As a student, you have individual rights outside of the school to post on social media whatever you would like to post. However, when anything that happens outside the school, outside of school property, outside of the school day, or at a school event, anything that happens outside of that is generally off limits to schools unless whatever happens affects the educational process. Social media tweets. Generally, we don't go looking for social media tweets. We would never peruse the Twitter accounts of students. We have no desire to do that, and it would be time-consuming and utterly chaotic if you did that. However, when it comes to our attention that there may be, let's say as an example, there's a tweet that one student is going to threaten or going to harm another student, or cause, let's say, some type of disruption to the school day. In other words, we get a tweet that says, hey, there's going to be a bomb set off in the school the next day. Well, obviously, that disrupts the educational process. If you are at a basketball game, or if you're at a football game, or a choir concert, or anything like that, that is a school activity. whether it's on Canfield school property or whether it's at Struthers or Poland, the school has a direct right to monitor that behavior. So a lot depends on when you do it and where you do it as to the effects.
What is like a school's legal grounds on which they can like go onto social media and punish kids for in school what they said outside of school?
Despite the fact that there are ways through privacy settings to restrict the material you post only to friends, if you have any significant number of friends, there's nothing to keep those people from sharing that information with someone else. So generally courts have said someone doesn't really have a reasonable expectation of privacy for anything they post on a publicly accessible social networking site. So there's no privacy issue. I mean, sometimes I've heard students say, we think the school is invading our privacy by looking at our Facebook pages or our Twitter feeds. And I have to say there's not much legal support for that conclusion. In fact, most people have said it really isn't private. When you've got 400 friends, you can't really describe that as private anymore. So, but the second question, part of your question though, is probably more important. Based on what they see there, does the school have the authority to punish a student for something that they've posted? And especially when that posting occurred outside of school, out of the school day, and not, as related to a school activity. If the student actually did the posting while they were at school, I think most courts would say the school does have grounds for punishing. Let's presume that we're focusing on those contexts where the postings occurred entirely outside of school. In that situation, the courts have really been all over the board on whether schools have the authority to punish students. There are some schools that have said a school's authority ends at the end of the school day and school-sponsored activities, and they have no authority to punish a student for any kind of expressive activity they engage in outside of school. Other courts have said if what the student is doing is creating some kind of material and substantial disruption in the school, even though the expression occurred outside of the school, then the school has the authority to punish it. I would argue, and I have argued it in court cases before, that the school's authority to punish speech really should end at the end of the school day. I mean, otherwise you've got this situation where if a school can punish you for what you publish online, can they punish you for what you read or what you watch on TV? I mean, if they decide that you're, consuming media that they find objectionable, does that, create a legitimate grounds? I think the clear answer to that is no, and partly because that's the authority of your parents. That is not authority that the school should have, but there has to be some dividing line between where parents control things. Even if it occurs at school, students have the right to criticize school officials. But when they're punishing students simply for offering criticism of a school policy or a school official, that I think is pretty clearly prohibited by the First Amendment. A student would have a really strong First Amendment claim in that context.
The first thing we need to get out is our goal here is to understand whether or not the school has the ability to punish kids for what they do outside of school. So first I want to get your opinion on that issue. Should the school have the authority to punish kids for things that they say outside of school hours and outside of school grounds?
If something is said that it would be considered bullying or a threat to any of the students at Canfield High School, then definitely.
On the administrative side, I hope people don't think that we go on Twitter and think, oh my gosh. Okay. First of all, I still have a Razor phone, so a flip phone Razor phone. So Twitter and all this stuff, I have no idea how to do all this stuff. A lot of these things are brought to our attention that are more or less threatening the school or demeaning the students. That's when it's actually taken it to another level.
To go along with what he said, the demeaning part is something, because if somebody says something, there's a bullying, or I get the threatening of the school is very serious and important, but even demeaning carries over into your classroom, and one of our jobs as teachers is to make it a safe and happy place to be here. And if somebody said something out of school, put something on Twitter about somebody, and that person feels uncomfortable or laughed at, it's part of our job to make them feel safe at school.
I mean, you might as well just take a billboard out and put the same information on that billboard, because you obviously want to get this information out. Which, like I said, I'm not a Twitter person, but if it was something that was going to be harmful, or if it was personal or something like that, I have no idea why kids want to do that in the first place.
And another thing is just like the general image of like bringing issues to the school. Like I know of at least one situation where a student said something critical of a teacher in the school, not threatening, not demeaning, but just critical. And they got talked about, the administration talked to them about that. And to a lot of people, I feel like that is just discouraging discussion about the job people are doing. Like as teachers, you have a job to do, and I think that if you're not doing it well, then criticism is something that shouldn't be discouraged. So by monitoring Twitter and, you know, not necessarily punishing, but at least bringing it to their attention that they don't appreciate what was said, do you think that the administration is inadvertently discouraging discussion about what teachers can do to improve?
Part of what we do here is teaching you how to be an adult and how to be a grown-up. And if you have a criticism of a teacher, I think it should be discussed and talked about with that teacher. If you didn't go to that teacher and you just posted it on Twitter, and we do have feelings, we do get hurt, we do want kids to have a good experience in our classroom, and part of you becoming an adult is going to the person you have a problem with and discussing it like an adult, so it's kind of a growing up lesson.
Everybody has a lot of guts when they're sitting behind their computer screen and they can type whatever they want. Instead of, you know, what Ms. Sprague said, go to that teacher, and, you know, if you have criticisms of that teacher, you have questions, then go ask them, go talk to them and straighten it out, instead of sitting at your phone or sitting behind the computer and talking poorly about whomever it is. That's not being a grown-up. You know what I mean? That's not solving the problem. That's making the problem worse.
Speaking of issues, there are some people who would argue that the school isn't doing enough in this regard as well. Like, if you're on social media, every once in a while you'll see some idiot post something like, oh, I consumed X, Y, and Z intoxicant, and now I'm tweeting this, or hey, do you guys want to buy this illegal material? And like, the school doesn't respond to that, but they do respond to, oh, this teacher is annoying and I don't like them. So like, is there a legitimate argument that the school isn't doing enough and should take this farther to like punish people for things that are legitimately wrong that don't involve the school?
I don't think that it's that the school isn't taking it far enough. I think that maybe they're looking for the wrong things, because the kind of people who would take to the office, oh, this person insulted this teacher, I think you guys need to address this as a tweet, is a different kind of person than the person who would take to the office, oh, this person tweeted they're doing drugs. Like, no one's going to take that to the office because they're going to be afraid, like, oh, is that person going to find out I'm the one that told on them? And, like, I would agree, like, as a person who has a Twitter, I do see those tweets every single day of people carrying, or, like, pictures of people doing drugs, or pictures of people drinking, and, like, that is never, it seems like that's never addressed.
You know, if something is brought to his desk, then they deal with it. If what you guys are saying takes place and it's not taken to his desk, then how is he supposed to know that?
Don't understand where they don't know what would be considered something that they wouldn't be allowed to tweet, what they could be punished for. Like, that's something I will say has not been made very clear to a lot of students.
You can't say it in front of your parents or your mother, then don't tweet it.
My advice to students would be to, before you act, know what your rights are, but also know what your limitations are, and understand the policy.
But the music has been sent to the gallery.
friends, man. That was awesome.